Start recording. Okay, so a couple things that I want to talk about today, like I mentioned. One is as we're modeling across the top, because I've seen, a couple of you guys are struggling with that, getting that curvature in the middle. So I kind of want to walk through that a little bit, and then, you know, loft surfaces versus the boundary surfaces, and why boundary surfaces are extremely important to get smooth, clean transition from surface to surface when you're building it. So let's first start with, I'm going to do a quick sketch, and we'll just go really quick here. So we're going to go spline, 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 spline. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my first primary surface and my surface down here. Now, we kind of spoke about this a long time ago, but when I do a sweep, so if I come in and let's just put in a insert reference geometry, oops, get out of my sketch. I'm going to come in, I'm going to go insert reference, oh wait, hold on, whoops, let me do one other thing. I forgot to put my other sketches in there. Okay. So we talked about building surfaces and only doing half. So if I come in and I go insert my reference geometry, so I'm going to go insert reference geometry plane. I want to start at the back edge here. So I'm going to do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that top surface that I want to build out. So if I come in and I draw my sketch on there, and let me just grab, and for this I'm going to use just a regular spline. So I already know that that's at the point there, so I'm going to come in. And right now we know that we're going to have a crease, so if I come in and let's just turn on curvature combs. You can see, zooming in, how there's an angle there. That means that it is not angled right. So if I come in, and let's say we got two options. I'll draw on my center line, like we've seen. We'll make that horizontal. And I can come in and I can snap this to the center. And we'll make a tangent. So we've got that. That's one method of doing it. Another method is, and you can also see how now these lines, there's no angle at that center point. The other method is if I come in, we're just going to delete that. We'll put that at an angle. I know that at this point, I want it to be 90 degrees. So I can click on the tangency line, I can go right click, and I can say make it horizontal. So I don't need that other line. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me come in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another curve down here. So we'll do the same thing. You know what? We're going to make it really simple. So here, I've got a couple different options. If I come in, I can loft this. And I can say I'm going to go from this profile, and I'm going to use this guide curve. So let's go Selection Manager. No, stop. We're going to select that profile. We're going to go Selection Manager. And the reason I'm using, yep, it's being recorded. The reason I'm using Selection Manager is because I have multiple sketches or multiple lines on one sketch, so I don't want to do it all. So we're going to select that, and we're going to do that. Now, Lofted Surface doesn't work because I don't have a start and an end position. So I'm really restricted to that. And at the same time, if you'll look here, we're going to look at constraints. All I can do is direction to vector and normal to profile. So normal to profile, what that means is, this is the profile, it'll always start going in this direction. Now, if I want to truly use the loft command, I have to build my secondary curve. So we're going to go Insert, Reference Geometry, we'll go with Plane. We're going to snap to that. We'll do a sketch on there. I get confused with that. Now, if I'm using my style spline, say, versus the other curve, well, if I want to get this to be tangent, I can't just go in and take the tangent line and make it horizontal or match it to the curve. So, because you can see, I've got that angle. So that's going to give me the baby's butt. So if I come in, oh, for some reason, I did not snap that to that. So we're just going to come in. Oh, I know. I see what I did. I snapped it accidentally to the edge of the plane. So we're going to come there, and we're going to make it coincident. Let's just get this back in here. And you can see I can try to eyeball it, but it's not going to work. It's always going to be weird like that. So if I come in, and now I use my loft surface, and if you look at these, extrude, revolved, swept, loft, surface, boundary, all these, they go in order of most complexity of a surface. An extrude surface is the simplest surface that you can make in SolidWorks. Filled surface allows you to do more of the most complicated surfaces. So it's basically horsepower. So let's do a lofted surface. We're going to go from that sketch to that sketch, and we're going to get our classic straight there. Now, something I want to show you that I haven't shown you yet is we've all seen if you accidentally grab the wrong edge and it doesn't do it for whatever reason. What you can do is come in. No, it's not going to let me do it on this one. Never mind. Must be on the boundary surface. So there we have that. Now we're going to come into our guide curve. And we're going to get that. Now, along our guide curve, we can say direction to vector or normal to profile. Now, normal to profile means that it will come straight off of there. So let's go with normal to profile. But you can see here a couple things happen. It does that dip. And the reason it's doing that dip is because what it's trying to do is it's trying to take this curve here that is, you know, curved up here. And what it does is it takes that curve, and instead of following across that path and having this curve rotate along there, what it tries to do is to go here, and then it flattens the curve out, and then it curves back. So if I look at my curvature combs on this, you can see, even though I have a nice bow here, and I have a nice bow here, it flattens out here. So these are the areas where you say, okay, well, I need to add more, because I don't want it to flatten out here. I want it to follow this curve. At the same time, off of this edge, I can't be guaranteed that I'm getting curvature off of there. So if I come in and we just go mirror, you can see we've got that big dip in there. Now part of that is because of this edge. So we want to fix that. We're going to come back, we're going to fix that. So I kind of talked about, I can't snap this and make it tangent like I did the other one, or make it horizontal. So I can do a couple things just like what we did before. You know, and this is really, really, really important stuff that you want to make sure is always there. So we're going to come in. Now what you can do is you can take this and snap it to here and make a tangent, and that flattens out. But if I only have one point, so let's say I said that's an awesome curve, that's all I wanted to do. Well, now I can only adjust to one point. I don't have that freedom to do anything else. And for whatever reason, let's say I was having this connect to another line. And I want to make that tangent. We run into a bit of a problem. See how it moved this curve? Well, let's say that's exactly how we want it locked. Well, it adds the point to force it to be tangent, but now I have considerably less control. So you can lock these ones in, but you just have to be aware of that. So if we say, okay, we're going to update this now. Now you can see we're tangent all the way along, so we fixed that divot. But the problem is we still have this issue here. Now, when I did the surface modeling before, everybody kind of saw how I was using sketch planes or extruded surfaces. The reason for that is when I draw in this curve, I don't want the curve to be sliding along here and just kind of flattening out. I want, as this goes along, I want it to rotate with the angle of the curve. So if I'm going to come back, oh, I can't do that. Let me just delete that. So if I want to draw another curve here, and I want to have a plane, I don't want to just put on this straight plane, because then, again, if I've got my curve, it's just doing this. It's not rotating. What we want the curve to do is, as it follows that path, we want it to rotate down that angle. So what we're going to do here is draw in a sketch. And instead of doing this, we're going to say at this point, that curve's going to bend. So we want it to bend, and we want it to be, as best as we can, at 90 degrees of that point. So what we'll do is we'll do that one. But then you also saw that what's happening is down in here, that's not a natural way for the curve to end off because it's on a flat plane. If we were to do that, we would want that curve to wrap around. Oops. And instead of being straight, we would want that curve to come. Let me make sure I'm grabbing the right thing. And that curve would probably naturally end like that. Are you guys following what I'm doing here? Okay, so like a sculpting tool, I don't drag the sculpting tool like this. I rotate it as I go along the surface. So let us come back. And again, one of you guys take on the effort of learning how to build planes with angles and all that, and teach us all how to do it. I can't stand it. That's why I cheat and do the surfaces. So we're going to come in. We're going to do a quick extrude surface. We're going to do that one. That one's already extruded. So now what I can do is I can come in and I can draw my sketch. Oh. You know what? I'm going to try something here. I'm going to copy that, Control C. I'm going to come in, I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to go Control V. Meh. That didn't work. Whatever. We'll delete that. So we're going to come in, and that's the top one. I'm going to say I want to make it a transition of this. And you can see sometimes I don't necessarily try to like get it perfectly on the line, because what I'll do is instead of dragging it around, I'll just draw it in space and then snap to it. We're going to come in. We're going to do our same thing. You know what? I'm going to show you guys. So here we're going to do this. And then what we want to do is we'll do the same thing for this. Control C. Oh, what's going on here? I don't know why I've got that extra one in there. I did something. But I'm still just going to come in and then I'll just delete that. I should have taken a screenshot of what I had done with the earlier one, so hopefully you all remember. So now what I'm going to do, you can kind of see how now these curves come down and they rotate on their angles. So what I'm going to do is, now I can do a lofted surface there to there. Oops, I grabbed the wrong one down there. So now you can see, if we look at this, our curvature, if I turn those on again, it's not flattening out anywhere because it's not trying to go from this and figure that out. So we've got full control as it goes all the way along. Does that make sense? Okay. So let us do one other thing here. One of the other tricks or other options to always assume is, we talked about having things come tangent off of a surface edge. So mathematically, if you sweep something along a curve, that's great. The reference point is only the curve. There's not much complexity to the curve, so it's only really referencing one thing. What can be useful, yeah, I can do this here, is at the center, to extrude it, or to curve it, extrude, whatever you're doing. Because when you can, it's always better to use a surface edge. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go through, but I'm going to show you something here, because I'm going to go lofted surface again. We're going to go here to here. Oh, I don't know why it does that. Oh, I know why it does that. I'm not going to worry explaining that. Now, here you can see it says the edge is tangent. I can make it tangent to face. That just helps you to modify it or ensure it is. But if you're doing it off of a curve, you can't be tangent off of a curve. So by being able to make it tangent off of a face, it gives you a little bit more freedom. So let's just do this. And then I'm going to show one more trick. Now, of course, you know, you can kind of see here, we've left that outside boundary utterly up to the software to do. So what we can do, though, is I'm going to make a drastic change here. Now there's a couple things. You can see we've got that hung way down, a little drastic there. So a couple things that we can do that are neat tools is, one, we could now come in, assuming that this contour up at this point is the way we want from our curvature standpoint. So again, if we come back and say, we can say, you know what, this is, sorry, that's a whole lot of stuff going on there. My apologies. I can't seem to. So if we come back and we say, you know what, this is what we want that overbuild surface to look like. So what we can then do is we can come in and say, okay, now I can come in and on here, I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to use style splines. And then what I can do is I want to trim this back because I only want to keep this surface. So I'm going to go Insert, Curve, Split Line, and I'm going to project this curve, which it's already selected, onto this surface, which then allows me to come in and I'll delete that face. Want to make sure I just have selected delete. And now I've got that as a clean edge surface. Now if I want to go back and make that more dramatic, so I don't have enough curves here, but now you can start seeing that I'm getting this form that I want versus trying to build around all the edges. Does that make sense? Okay. Is that useful tip? Useful tool? Yay, nay?
Part of being involved in design.
Sorry, say that again, Evan. Who was talking there? Everybody kind of talked over each other for a second. No one? Okay. Now, where I tell you that I don't like 3D splines, there is a place for it. So if I come back and I delete this surface, let's say these curves do exactly what I want. This is where I want that shape to be. I can come in, I've got a good start point, and I've got some control points in space. So I can come in and go Sketch, 3D Sketch, and we're going to do a spline. I can snap to that point, snap to that point, I can snap to that point, and you can see I start getting some control on how it goes. Now, I can come in, and you can see I can't just make it horizontal because it's in 3D space. So if I'm in 3D space and I wanted to do something, then I have to come in and say, make it straight along the Z. Because you can see, here's my Z axis. So there it controls it. Now it curves it in a little bit. So what I'm going to want to do, and for me, 3D splines, it's all about controlling it in 2D planes. So I can come in and say, okay, well, I can't really move that too much other than to make it fatter or thinner because it's coming off of that one and it's a natural transition. So I could say that's perfect, or I could adjust it. Again, go to my 2D workspace, adjust the angle. I can start tweaking, but you can see how this as a 3D spline is a little bit easier to control because I'm working in a 2D space when I'm manipulating everything. If I come here and I try to adjust this, you can see it's working within that 3D box. So now it's kind of a little bit all over the place. So there now I've got my boundary curve, and what I can then do is come in, exit out of that, and create it using the 3D spline. So instead of trying to create a complicated surface with a whole bunch of lofts, if I know what my contour lines are that I want, like what you guys have been doing, your contour lines, I can then create them and adjust them. So here I can now come back in. We'll do my boundary surface. We don't want that. We're going to go boundary to boundary. So I want to see here. So here we screwed up. Now, okay, right, you can only do on boundary. So here I selected the right edge, and over here I selected the wrong. So instead of redoing it, my last sketch is sketch 7. I can right click and just go flip connectors. Just a quick little thing, easier than going back and doing the steps. I'm going to now come in, do that line there. I want to tell it to be tangent. And then I'll grab this curve down here. Now I've got that kind of whale shape that I want, but you can see by having that horizontal, I'm not getting the shape that I want. So then it's a matter of going back, editing. We'll get rid of that relation. But you can still see, you got to know what you want from a surface standpoint. Now, I think if I was doing this, if I was actually doing a form, I would want this to be coming off of here. So that looks a lot better down in there. Now, it's all about how do you want to control this. So let's say you want this to be deeper or to be lower. Well, everything's going to be about controlling your sketch. So you're not going to, let me just do this. Who wants to guess if I want this edge to be lower, what do I need to edit?
You need to edit that curve that you were just pointing at.
This one?
Yeah.
So, awesome, but no. Because you have to look at the way you did things in order. So, right now, this curve is locked to the end of this point. So if I want to move this point on this curve that's locked, I have to edit this curve. So let's say you decide that you want this wing to be lower down here. We're going to come in, we'll edit that sketch, and we'll just drop it down lower. This is where, now you can see that the whole thing dropped down because that, let me see if I can do it this way. See, I hate that. Some software, and even SolidWorks, sometimes you can edit it in real space. If you have a dimension, you can do it, but. So let me exaggerate it here because I don't know if anybody could actually see what was going on there. There. So now you can see how much I really dipped it down. But you have to then work on controlling it. Is this what you want down here? And this is where, so having a good start point is always so important so that you're not just trying to fiddle around. SolidWorks is not like a, not NURB. SolidWorks is not a freeform sculpting tool, so it's not really good for you to be pushing and moving and pulling. So let us go back here. Why is that curve not updating? Well, that's just weird. Interesting. Well, I'll rebuild that in a bit. Yeah, I really did something weird there.
This happens a lot in my own SolidWorks program, and I hate it.
Well, that's because I went and I did too much undo. So let me I'll just redo the 3D spline here quickly. Or you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to... So I'm just going to go back in and I'm just going to do my lofts. Or my boundary surface. So what I'm doing again is I'm projecting, creating a split line using that curve, this surface, and then I'll just delete that face. So there I've got my surface. What time is it here?
Hey guys.
Yep.
I have a question about split lines.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I make split lines, I get an error. I'm kind of forgetting what it says, but I think it's like the most common. It's like that the split line or the line you're trying to split isn't going all the way through or isn't connecting with the surface.
Yeah. So what?
Explain like what is the biggest reason why that problem happens?
Yeah. So the biggest reason, and actually the only reason, is if I'm doing a split line. Where is it here? A split line means that it's splitting the surface into two pieces. A line that doesn't go all the way through, so if I try to use this as a split line, come on. If I try to use this as a split line and put that on the surface, there's nothing to split. It doesn't automatically extend it or that. So you can see here the projected sketch does not split the selected faces. It may not intersect the face or be totally coincident with an edge. Now,
yeah, that was the error I was talking about.
Yeah.
So if you bring a coincident, I feel like sometimes this still gives you that error. Is it just a good rule of thumb to just like kind of drag the line past the surface that you're trying to split?
Yeah, if you want, there are times where you have a surface model where you've got edges that you don't want to go past, and I can show you that later. But here it's coincident, and let's see if that's going to let me do it. Because there are times where, it's not supposed to do what you're just saying, but maybe it is. There we go. Projected line does not split, or it's not totally intersected with the face. So there it did exactly what you said. If we bring it past, it's going to do it. Insert curve. And then it gives us that split line. So let's see. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I had a split line that was coincident with two edges, and it was giving me that error, and I was really confused.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering if that was the only reason you get that error or not.
Usually that's the only reason. Now something else. So let's say you want to do so here's another thing with the projected. So when I project it, it's a straight line. on there. You know, it's being projected straight, not in a 3D fashion. What you can also do is you can come in and sketch, and you can grab a spline on surface. So right off the bat it says, what's your surface? I'm going to come in here. And what you can see is that spline is literally on that surface. And I can control it. Oh, I got too many points on it. And when it does it, it moves it along that surface. I don't use this too often. What I have used this for is, let's say I want to have a pattern go along a surface perfectly. Then I'll use this as a pattern on a surface. So that's more just a, hey, there's a cool thing. Let me try not to go back too far this time. Okay, so here we've shown that we've got a primary surface. Now let's say that we want to do something wherein we're building another surface and we want to blend it in. So we've got a couple different ways of doing that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to trim out a section on here and I'm going to add in like a fin to it. So we're going to come in and I'm going to do a sketch. Style splines because I don't need much control, but it helps if and for this, I'm just going to draw a straight line. Okay, so for this now, because this is completely closed off, theoretically I should be able to insert this as a split line. So there we go. So what I'm doing is I'm sectioning off the area that I want it to add to. So basically what I'm going to do now is I need to build some curves on a plane to get that form. So if I come in and I'm going to go, let's just delete. Now I've got that area that I want to build my surface or my curve on. So just like we talked about before, if I'm going to build a shape, then I want to try to do it at the same angle as that curve. So I want to build a plane down here that's on this. What is that curve there? Okay, I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm going to come in. We'll do a quick sketch. So I'm going to do the sketch there, but I also want to hide that because it's in my way. Okay, so what I can now do is a couple things. I can do a hard edge, or I can do, we talked about where it's just positional. So I can come in and say, well, oh, come on. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make this positional. So I'm going to take this, I'll snap it to here, we'll pierce it. We'll pierce that. Come on. Why is it not giving me my normal to? There we go. So I'm going to build this out. And let's say this is like a little fishy, so we want it to do that. This is going to be really drastic. Now, here, even if I want this to be a transition later, I'm still going to build it edge to edge, and I'll worry about putting the transition in potentially later. This might be a little bit drastic, but let's see what happens. So what we can then do is exit out of there. And here's where we can do some things, but we got to be careful because we can get into problems. So if I come in and I do a lofted surface, again, I can go from there to there. Okay, let's turn off all this. Back into here. So it's just kind of doing that big glump. The start one I can control, so we'll make that tangent to face. The end one we'll make tangent to face. Oops. Start. Oh, is this my no, start and end. Oh, right. So this, okay, so this is one of the things I wanted to show you. Oh, no. There we go. So start, tangent to face. Oh, there we go. End, tangent to face. So there you can kind of see it starting to do it, and we're going to get smooth in there. So now we'll add in this guide rail. And that guide rail. So it's not necessarily pretty, but you can see that we're starting to look at and get what we want. You know, if it's going to be a whale or something of that, or a fin or something of that matter. You know, where the form kind of sweeps out. Let me just do one thing here. So what we can do, even though this edge is a hard point right now, you can see that that's a hard edge. Let's knit the two together. You can see it's the black line. The ends are dotted, if you can see that. What I can do, instead of going back and trying to mess with my curves, I have limited control. But what I can do is I can come in and say, well, edge 4, nope, edge 3, I'm going to make that tangent to face 2. So it may not be achieved, but it will still be created one or more, because I'm asking for a lot. I don't think it's going to give it to me. Oh, it did. So now, without editing that curve, it made it tangent to face, but you can kind of see how much it adjusted that surface. It really made it pull down. I can come back. I can adjust this, but I've got limited options here for that. So let's look at that, and we're going to try we're going to do a boundary. So we're going to go there, through there, through there. One of the nice things about boundary is I'm going to simply just say here I want it tangent. Here I want it tangent. Now, one of the things that the boundary surface allows you to do is you can see here it's making it tangent, but it really dives in deep. I can grab this arrow, or I can come over here, and that's the length of the tangent. So just like what we did on the other ones where you can pull the tangent line back in and out, through the surface tool, let's go 10. So that makes it horrible because it's telling it way too far out. I can go 3. I can then come in, we'll lock it to that one, we'll lock it to that one, and you'll see here, when I come in, it's not letting me do it now. I think it's because I got it too much locked in. But if we come back here and we go tangent to face, again, it's not going to give us what we want because it's going to adjust our surface too much. But you may like it and say, okay, hey, that is good. But you can kind of see here, we've got a little bit of lack of control. But you can see what I'm doing is I'm building this off. And I'm creating a separate surface versus trying to do it all in one complex surface. You know, it would be very hard or harder if at that, you know, if I was trying to loft it and then what I was trying to do was to create so you can imagine if I tried to create a sketch where it came down here, then it came down here, then it came down here, then it curved, then it came back in, and it did all this. And then try to kind of loft it through the areas. That becomes an extremely overtly complex surface, which means that it's going to be hard to manage. Versus doing multiple steps to get the surface in the way you want it. Now here, you know, you can see that this is not very refined. I've really got it over exaggerated. You know, I would probably definitely put in several more lofts or curves to go on and do that. But also you can see it's having a hard time transitioning in here. So what I would probably then do is, like we talked about, it's better to be building off of another surface. So if I come back, and where we had used one split line, I want to be able to build off of this other split line. So I'm going to come in, because this is going to give me a little bit more control. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go insert reference geometry, insert curve, split line, and project it on there. Now you can see what I've got is I'm able to snap to these edges and make things tangent to that surface. So at the same time, I need a plane to work off of. So I use the split line. I might as well use that exact same line to build my planar surface. Oh, not planar, sorry, extrude it. So what I can then do is come in, we'll do a sketch on here. And this time I am going to just use the regular spline, and I'm going to use 2 points. So 1, 2, 3 actually. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, okay. Instead of trying to do a secondary operation, I want this to be tangent. Why did it not give it to me? We'll adjust this, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build that radius right into it, or that smoother transition. What error? What? Oh. So this is something that Haley and I discovered, and I don't know why it does this. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to get rid of this tangency up at the top. And sometimes, until you modify the handles in there, it doesn't always want to give you that tangency it should. Let's see if that works. So see what happened there? Until I adjusted this point, it did not want to do what it should have. So we're going to get a nice smooth line in there. We're going to get the smooth line there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play with this. So you can see here, this is where we don't have a choice. We've got to use more than 2 points. I'm going to get that to be swept in a little bit more. You know, we can play with it. You can see that we're kind of getting a very similar surface to what we did. Now what we're going to do is we'll come back in, we'll do our boundary. There. Oops. So you can also see here where my edge 1, I want it to go move above, so I'm just going to move it up. So we're going to go there, come down there. Oh, so now because I put a split line in there, it views it as 2 separate edges. So I've got to use my selection manager. Grab that edge and say yes. Same as the bottom, selection manager. Grab that edge. Put it in there. We'll make that tangent. We'll make that tangent. Theoretically, this should be tangent, so let's just see what we get. And the reason I say theoretically it should be tangent is because we built that curved tangent. It may be an issue down there. So let's go knit. It is back up in here, but not so much down there. So we would want to come back in and make it tangent on all areas. So that we have it. So there you can see that we've built that secondary fin in there. Now, for those of you that have built some nice stuff, absolutely none of you would have this edge in there. So this would be something that you'd want to play with a fair bit. Or it may even be that you need to put a, let's say a 3D spline to control what's going on a little bit better, so that you're guiding the curve out here. So it's something where you kind of go in and you go sketch, 3D sketch. Oop. 3D sketch. Now, if we had projected a line on this end and that end, we could make this tangent or curvature to that face. Was it going to let me do it to the face? No, I didn't think it would. But what you can see there is, instead of trying to get it so complicated, you know, break it down. This is what I meant by primary, secondary, and tertiary surfaces. So this may be considered a secondary. And then for this one, getting whatever fillets or radiuses you want in there could be nicer. Or for this, you could actually even, instead of trying to do a surface, do various cross sections and have it loft through cross sections on different planes. Is this making sense? Is this helping?
Yes.
Okay. Are we seeing how this may be applied to what you guys are doing? Kind of, sort of? Okay, let's take a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back and it'll just be open session time. Okay? I will stop recording.